In a bigger way, you bring all the kind of cuttings and the bits of your life and you turn them into a show of it.
It's a solid gold. Yes, you do, I suppose. Well, what else have you got? Someone said, someone at a literary festival said, why do you think anyone's interested in your life after a gig? And I said, that's not how I look at it. So I say, the interesting thing is what laughter is something you share. It's not I come from a position that my life is inherently interesting, but there are bits in it which I've found from experience people laugh at. And in fact, the fact that people laugh shows that there's some connection between us, me, and the performing arts. People always review the performer as well, as if the show was important. Whereas in fact, much more interesting is the audience. Like the fact that a bloke stands on a stage and chats into a microphone isn't that remarkable. What is remarkable is that there's 150 people sitting mute watching him. And I suppose you could say the same for art. It isn't so much the paintings themselves, not a lot of effort's gone into them, it's not spent years and years painting them, they've been mass produced, but that people are looking at it. Oh, we're passing through the skulls. Death is the reason for art. What marks will you leave behind?
Okay, Simon, we're still in the gift shop, and of course the Guardian's generosity, munificence knows no bounds.
Right.
What can we buy you? What are your icons? Well, we're surrounded by tea towels, there's Campbell's soup bags, there's books.
The Guardian's
postcards.
going to buy me a gift.
A small one.
Oh, what's your budget, The Guardian?
Pretty small.
Do you want to put a number to it?
No, pretty small.
Oh, well, I'd like nothing, thanks. No, I mean, what's interesting about the shop is it's indistinguishable from the gallery, except it's all much closer together and smaller.
So, Lynn, you've seen the Warhol exhibition.
I have, and it's fabulous. It's absolutely wonderful. I mean, what I really loved about it is the playfulness of it. Watching people in these galleries, they're quite clearly actually having a lot of fun, and not just when they're playing with silver helium pillows or clouds, I think they're supposed to be. In fact, there's a lovely little notice just as you walk in there which says, please touch the art gently, which is such a nice idea here, that's the case. But the whole thing feels very playful, and perhaps in some ways that's because it also feels very familiar. This guy was 40 years ahead of his time. He just understood branding so well, and he also understood celebrity. If you look at those pictures of Jackie Kennedy, they're just extraordinary. You feel as though actually this is work that you know intimately, even though I'd certainly never really seen any of those artworks, there where I could touch them, if only gently.
I like that idea. I might put a sign up at my show saying, please touch the artist gently.
Because people have been touching you roughly up to this point.
Very roughly sometimes, yeah. But I might go to the Warhol. That sounds good. I've never really liked what I've seen of his stuff, but you've made it sound very appealing.
Well, I wouldn't have counted myself as a fan, but I so enjoyed it.
It hasn't staled through repeated exposure.
No, in a strange way, I think that's what's interesting about it. I think it's the fact that you think you know it, and you do know it, but you don't quite know it the way you think that you do, is part of actually what makes it seem really fresh.
Well, that's the point Jonathan Jones made in his Guardian reviews. He thought the show was the best thing ever, but he said precisely that you think he's actually a quite clinical, cynical, interested in surfaces, but actually come out thinking that the man had a heart. You never find out, you never knew before that Warhol actually had a big heart. So when Simon Munnery talks about the overlap between comedy and art, is there an overlap? Can comedians be artists? Can artists be comedians?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, it is, isn't it? I mean, art, if you talk about paintings, it's expressing an idea. That's exactly what a comedian is seeking to do, trying to be understood, or at least have a piece of work that you've done interpreted in a way that pleases or challenges or provokes a response. I think it is art.
Are we seriously, for a moment, even questioning the fact that comedy might not be art? Of course it is.
Let's swap over.
Some of it's low art.
Yes.
Very, very low art. Yeah. I mean, I think the lowest art gets would probably be in the hands of some comedians.
Obviously, I see a lot of comedy, and I do sometimes wish that they thought of themselves in that way more, because I see a lot of theatre for the other 11 months of the year, and I kind of feel no matter how bad theatre gets, usually there's an effort to express something or a coherence of approach, whereas sometimes I feel with comedians they're a bit lazier.
Well, we're just servants of gag sometimes, I think.
The gigs that I've often enjoyed most are in fact those where people do actually get away completely from the punchline.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day, and I was unable to answer, why is it that comedians acknowledge when a joke hasn't worked? we all go, oh, don't know why that didn't work. Sorry about that.
Just me then, the classic.
Just me then.
Maybe it's sheer embarrassment.
It is, but you'd think if you were that embarrassed, if you fart somewhere, you just walk away from it. You don't go, oh, I farted. I have farted. I'm sorry, everyone, I've farted.
I mean, I think people do like coming to comedy because they know that there is a possibility that you will die on your arse, and and people, there is an element of people sort of, oh yeah, I mean, and it's fascinating when you see when one is struggling, that's when the mask falls away, and that's when you actually see the heart and soul of somebody, isn't it?
That's when all the other comedians gather in the back of the room. The text message goes round. Beep, 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 beep. Marcus Brigstocke having a really terrible gig. The rumour is we can still fit in at the back. Did you see it? Yeah, I saw it. He looked frantic.
I suppose the point about comedy and art is that clearly the best comic performances are brilliant works of art. But comedy is quite unique among the art forms in that what we call visual art or theatre can try and elicit one of a million possible responses. And comedy is the only art form that is judged on whether it engenders one specific response, which is laughter.
That's why comedy's best.
That's why comedy's best.
But I mean, I'm saying that personally. That's why comedy's best for me. I act and do lots of other things as well. But if the audience don't laugh, you didn't do your job. And I love the straightforward nature of that.
Yeah, but I just like comedians who demand of themselves that they make the audience laugh, but then also say, once I've got them laughing, what do I do with them in that wonderful, pliant,
introduce the
receptive
next act is the most sensible thing.
Yeah.
So, Lynn, you alluded to some of the things you'd seen when we started the show. Can you tell us a bit more about Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea? That was one of the shows that you were most enthusiastic about.
What it is a theatrical cabaret that's set up as though it's set in the 1920s, and there's a pianist as though they're providing a kind of silent movie accompaniment. And there is a screen on which various animations take place. But then there's also live action that integrates with the screen. Anyone who's seen the work of people like Forkbeard Fantasy would probably, have an idea of what is going on. But it is incredibly well done and very funny, because what follow are a series of really rather sinister vignettes. There's twin sisters who have a story about the lodger who moves in, and the parents have mysteriously disappeared in what's described as a wishing well accident and are buried in the cemetery in the back bedroom.
The lodger arrived without warning at an unsociable hour, cheap love on his breath, and the tatty piece of string that bore a rusty key around his neck, and a pencil moustache that was penciled on. He was a Frenchman who didn't appear to speak or understand any English, or any French.
You never quite know. The whole thing is kind of shot as though it's kind of a voyeur looking through the rooms, so you never quite know what it is that has happened to the lodger. So the whole thing is enormously witty and very entertaining. It's a bit like Edward Gorey or something like Shock-Headed Peter, very much like that as well. And what's beautiful about it is the way that it's done. Almost everything is perfect about it. Often in these things, either the live action is quite good, but the animation isn't great, or the design is very nice but the acting and the writing isn't so strong. And what's fantastic about this is that almost every single element of it is just so.
Well, one of the things that both Lucy and I saw was Tony Lee's Triple X Aggressive Comedy Hypnosis. It's a show where people volunteer to be hypnotised, and on stage Tony gets them to perform all sorts of unpleasant activities. Producer Francesca Panetta caught up with some of the hypnotised volunteers immediately after the show.
Well, it's only just coming back to me now, but I'm pretty sure, looking at one of my mates now, and I'm pretty sure I was licking some cream off him, and I was doing some dodgy stuff to a chair.
I kind of knew when I had to pretend that the pet was that I was having sex with my pet. I knew that it wasn't real, so I was trying to behave, but you kind of just don't have much control.
The only point when I thought, actually, I've had enough now was when the guy next to me called the guy a gook. At that point, I kind of thought, actually, I've had enough.
Were you really hypnotised, truly hypnotised?
Yeah, there was something really weird about it. It was almost like I was conscious of doing it, but at the same time, I couldn't not do it,
At the time, you kind of felt like I I semi-knew what was happening, but you had no control over it. Like, you just felt it was best to stay on stage. So it's a bit random, and afterwards you just feel a bit skewy, but good fun.
Do you feel exploited?
No, not really. I'm a confident guy, and I had a good night tonight. The things are coming back to me now. I'm sure it was all done in jest, so it was a really good night. Really good night.
Is this a good act? I mean, is it fun to watch?
Yeah, it was absolutely hilarious. I mean, one of the funniest. I've never laughed harder. It's one of the funniest things I've seen in my life.
What was your favourite bit?
Oh, the humping of the chairs.
You said the bit where the guy was doing anal to the other guy.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Was it over the top? Did it go too far?
No, it could have gone a lot further. It was good.
Could have gone further.
Well, he said it usually goes further, so I'm pretty sure there's probably some more extreme shit that goes on, but it's good.
So an enthusiastic response from participants and punters, but Lucy, I gather you, like me, had a slightly more jaundiced perspective.
Well, I mean, I have never seen an audience reaction like it to anything. It was people literally falling off their seats, laughing when a man was simulating oral sex on another man.
That chap in the clip there made the humping of the chairs sound like the trooping of the colour.
Yes. I found it just terrifying. I was grimly fascinated for the whole thing. What did you think?
Yeah, a certain morbid compulsion, but it was one of the most unpleasant experiences I've ever had in a theatre. And I came away thinking... it was really interesting to sit there and wonder, am I just a prude? And then it clicked that Tony Lee was a macho, sexist and cynical man who was making entertainment out of really nasty activities. And occasionally you would get a flicker of something interesting happen. Somebody under hypnosis would evince some signs of charming eccentricity.
Really?
And for example, there was one scene when they were imagining they were in a McDonald's drive-thru and they had to order. And the guy ordered a dairy milk McFlurry. And he kept insisting on this was his order. Now that was quite lovable. That gave you just an inkling of how perhaps a hypnotism show might be quite charming. But Tony Lee had no interest in these human beings on stage who had interesting personalities. He was only interested in having them have sex with each other.
Right.
And everyone throws their hat in the air and whoops and cheers. Apart from me, who started to sob in the corner.
I mean, it's such a good booking, though, isn't it? It's been packed, and it was going to be a huge hit. I think it's very.
I mean, he's not going to lose 10,000 quid.
He's certainly not going to lose 10,000 quid.
It's called Triple X as well, isn't it? I mean, it does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
But it's just what you do with those X's, and it sort of ram them up people's bums as aggressively as Tony Lee does.
Have you ever seen comedy hypnotism?
Yeah, I don't like it. You sort of go, all right, okay, you've made someone be foolish. Actually, no, I tell you, I did see Paul McKenna when I was a teenager. He was sort of getting people to pretend to be washing machines or, eat an onion when it was actually an apple and stuff. It was hilarious.
Do comedians or performers have any responsibility in the way they treat their audience?
There's always a slight edge of, I try, if I pick on, or not pick on, you see, the very language is loaded, but if I speak to people in the audience, you try not to be mean, but there is a certain edge to it, I think, with comedy that people like, seeing people getting a ribbing of some description, even if it's gentle.
But it can work, of course, the other way, because when I saw Will Adamsdale's Human Computer, the person who he chose from the audience to operate kind of the arrow on his computer, which is an absolutely integral part of the show, unfortunately was absolute rubbish at it and almost scuppered the entire thing.
Really?
So, yes.
It's a dangerous game to play when you involve the audience.
Well, I did a show many years ago at the Fringe about therapy and counselling, and one of the things was to try and get two men to hug without feeling the need to whack each other on the back in a sort of I'll hug you but I'm not gay thing. And I got this guy out of the audience and said, hello, what's your name? And he said, Paul. And I said, right, good. And what do you do, Paul? And he said, I'm head of the comedy at the BBC. It was Paul Jackson. And I couldn't sit him back down again, because once they're up, they're up. These things can blow up in your face. Yes. And at that moment, the entire audience winced and clenched buttocks as my career seemed to disappear down a hole.
Well, that's it for today's extended Heckle, presented by me, Brian Logan.
And me, Lucy Porter. A huge thank you to our guests, the lovely Marcus Brigstocke and Lynn Gardner. The music's by the Des Moines Riot.
The production team is Andy Dixon, Pascal Wise and Jim Anthony.
And the shows are produced by Ben Walker and Francesca Panetta.
Until Monday, bye-bye.
Guardian Unlimited.